Okay, so welcome to lesson 5 of the first section on practical problem solving and programming. So in this lesson we're going to have a look at trace tables, but before we do that we're going to have a recap of the previous lesson. So why do we have validation? Well, validation is there to help us check the data that is entered into a system. So how would we validate data in a flowchart? Well, we would use a decision box to actually validate the symbol. Now, an example of validation would be the check digit. Okay, so we're going to have a look at check digit now. So here is a check digit question. So the idea, this is a modulus 1-3 question. So what you'd have is, in fact, you call it a modulus 10. It's a modulus 10 or a modulus 1-3 or modulus 13. It's all the same. Okay, the idea is you would have an ISBN number or a barcode number, and you would have to calculate the check digit, which is that last number there. Okay, so there's two ways of doing this. You could give each position a value, okay, a weight. So the first position being an odd number, it will be a weight of 1. Even numbers are a weight of 3. Okay, and what you'd do, you'd times it by its weight. So 5 times 1, 0 times 3, 1 times 1, 4 times 3 gives you 12, 0 times 1 gives you 0, etc. Okay, we take that number and we add it all together to give us 49. We divide by 10, but then we take the remainder away from 10, and that should give us the 1 as a check digit. The other way you could do it is take out all the odd numbers, add them all together and then times by 1, and then add that number to all the even numbers times by 3, and then that total number add to the total for the odd would still give us 49. Okay, and obviously divide by 10 gives us 4 tens in 49 with 9 left over. Take 9 away from 10 should give us 1, and that is essentially the check digit process. Right, so the objectives for today's lesson, we're going to use trace tables to find the value of variables at each step in an algorithm and identify errors in a given algorithm and suggest ways of removing these errors as well. Okay, so the homework task for this lesson was to attempt a past exam question that I gave. So next lesson we'll have a look at the answer for that past exam question. I'll hand it over. Okay, so dry running. Why do we dry run algorithms? This is a question that I asked in lesson. And the idea with dry running is to make sure that all data is actually correct at every single stage, and to find any errors that you need to correct. Okay, so we dry run our pseudocode and our flowcharts using something called trace tables. So what are trace tables? Well, while a simple dry run can be done entirely in one's head, okay, programmers often perform a dry run involving a loop using a trace table. Okay, so basically a trace table has a column for each variable, usually in order in which their values are first assigned within the loop. And then each row is then completed with the values of the variables whenever they change, moving to the next row when necessary. So a trace table might appear to look very similar to a test plan, but without the headings like expected outcome or actual outcome. It actually record wherever data is inside that variable. So why do we have trace tables? So thorough dry running with a trace table aids our understanding of existing algorithms, which involve a complex loop with multiple decisions and different points within it, by allowing us to track its complete behavior so we can actually understand the program as a whole. So having a good trace table and having a complete trace table helps our understanding of a given program. So a trace table is also useful while designing an algorithm for checking that it uses correct logic and for testing that it generates the required results for a given set of test data. And obviously it's very useful for identifying errors and then troubleshooting those errors as well. Okay, so let's have a look at a trace table. So here we've got a flowchart on the right with a loop. Okay, we've got test data that we're going to input into the value of x. Okay, so this is where the test data will be inputted. So we've got 9, 7, 3, etc. And we're going to run this through the flowchart. So the first step is we record the data of the variables. So initially, this stage here, A is 0, B is 0, and C is 100. Okay, so the first step there, we need to input the first x value, which is 9. Okay, so now we can store 9 into the x variable. Once we've done that, it says here is x greater than b. Well, if x is greater than b, well then it's a yes. So that means we need to put the x value into b. So here we would put 9 into b variable. Okay, and then we follow the route, and then is a, also we put a at the moment, which is 0, we add 1 to that 0, so that would give us a count. So a becomes our counter. Okay, and then we ask a question here, is a less than 10? Well, it is, so that means we need to go back up to the loop and input the next test data, which is 7, and so on. So 7 is x greater than b, so here we've got b, so we've got 9, that's already in there, so it's not greater than b, so we need to move down. Is x less than c? Well, yeah, it is, because c at the moment is 100. So once that is true, we need to put the value of x into c. Okay, and we follow the loop, and we add another one to the counter, which will give us 2. And then we move on to the next one, which is 3. Okay, we input that, input into x. Now, is x greater than b? Now, at the moment, the value of b is actually 9. Okay, so is 3 greater than 9? Well, it isn't. So we move on down to the next decision. So is x less than c? At the moment, the value of 7 is stored into c, so what would happen is number 3 will be stored into variable c, and then we would add another one to the counter. Next one, we've got number 12, so number 12 goes into x. Is x greater than b? At the moment, 9 is in b, so yes, x is greater than b, so 12 gets stored into b. We move down and we add another one to the counter. Then we've got the number 6 that comes into it. Okay, now is 6 greater than b? Well, no, it isn't. We go down, so is 6 less than c? Well, at the moment, 3 is in there, so it wouldn't put itself in there. So we need to add another one to the counter, so nothing happens to any of the variables. And the next one, we've got 4. 4, going back down, is 4 greater than b? No. Okay, so we need to add, I think each of these decisions is a no, and we add a count. And the next input value is 15. Well, 15 is 15 greater than b? Well, 15 is greater than 12. So it puts 15 into the variable b. Okay, and then it adds another one to the count. The next one is 2. So is 2 greater than b, which is 15 at this moment? No, it isn't. Is it less than c? Well, at the moment you've got 3 in there, so yes, it is less than 3. And then you add another one to the count, and then we've got number 8. So we input 8, and now is 8 greater than b? Well, no, it isn't. Okay, is it less than c? Well, no, it isn't, so nothing happens. We just add to the count and move on to the next input value. So we've got 5. 5 goes into x. Now, is x greater than b? No, it isn't. So it'll move on from there. Is x less than c? No, it isn't. So we'll just add to the count. And once it's added to that count, now we've got a question which we kept on asking here, but we haven't really needed to use it up until now. So it says here now, is a less than 10? Well, no, it isn't. It is 10. So we need to jump out of the loop, and then we output b and c. So the output here should read whatever variable is in b and whatever variable is in c. Okay, so in this case 15 and 2, because those are the 2 last recorded variables, and hey presto, 15 and 2. Okay, so the question here, what does this algorithm do? Well, it's quite simple really. It picks out the highest number out of the test data, and it picks out the lowest number in the test data. Okay, so here we're going to have a look at a trace table for a piece of pseudocode. So here is the pseudocode, and here is the test data. So what we could do here, we could find out the test data here. So what I'd like you to do is just pause the video and create your own table for outputs A, B, C, and X. I mean, you could work out what variables there would be, and obviously the output on the last column. So you can actually make your own table here just by reading the pseudocode. So if I just pause for a couple of seconds while you do that, because on the next animation that's going to pop up, the answer is going to pop up. So if I pause now and then have a go at the trace table for this pseudocode using the test data in red. Okay, I'll pause for about 3 seconds. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is the trace table, what you should have got. Okay, you should have got the following values, and B should show 19, and C should show 3, and the output should be 19 and 3. Okay, now you would have noticed that should have been 19 and 1. I made a mistake there. It hasn't been finished. Apologies for that. Yeah, 19 and 1, because 1 is your lowest. Yes, you would have noticed that it is exactly like the flow chart beforehand. So it picks out the highest number and the lowest number. Sorry about that. I didn't finish the count there. But yeah. The pseudocode there shows exactly the same notations or exactly the same steps as the flowchart on the previous slide. Okay, so just bearing that in mind, and analyze the pseudocode and see what the similarities are and the differences, so we better understand, especially when it comes to the exam. Okay, so the trace table task. So we've got the two trace tables. We've got the pseudocode and the flowchart, both exactly the same. What I want you to do is have a go at creating a trace table using this test data. Okay, so have a go. So if you just pause the video for a bit whilst you're having a go, I'll give you a couple of seconds just to give you a chance to pause the video and complete a test table or trace table for the following test data. Okay, so we're going to show you, or I'm going to show you the answer or the outcome that you should have received. Now the outcome is there. Okay, so we've got the task there, and we found that the output showed 9 and 100. Now, why do you think, what's happened? Well, there is an error, because as the smallest number has not been identified. Okay, the smallest number going down this should have read 110. Okay, and the number wasn't identified in the variable. So how do we solve this? Well, what would happen if we used a negative number to test our algorithm? Well, you'd get the same errors. So we're going to try and fix it. Okay, so in the next slide, I'm going to show you how we would actually fix this problem. So the initial process at the start, where we set the variables up, A, B, and C. What I've done there is I've changed the variables to highlight negative numbers and a positive number, and they're quite large. So we've got negative 1 million and positive 1 million there, and that should actually solve our problem. Okay. At this point, have a go at questions 7 and 8 in the textbook on page 132. Once you've done that, have a go at this exam question, and I'm going to pause it there. So if you just pause the video, and then we'll go through the answer. I'll give you a solution for this exam question. So the solution for the exam question is there. So if you just pause the video again and just mark your answers, and the mark scheme is there. So they'll award you 1 mark for the variable there and 1 mark for that section there. The total number of marks available is 4. Okay, so we've got 1 mark for that bit, 1 mark for the whole of that section, and then 2 marks for the area as you're going up. Okay, so this is the end of this video. So if you just pause it there, and if you're still marking, then mark this, and I'll see you or speak to you in the next lesson. Thank you.